All right, here's my advice. If you're new to clinical or if you've been in clinical for a while and you're a little overwhelmed when you start each case, there's three important things to take in consideration, and there's safe things to take in consideration. Not necessarily in order, but let's go through those three things I think you should always be thinking about when you're in clinical and you're giving anesthesia. One, is your patient ventilating? If you don't ventilate, you don't oxygenate. So it's so important that you ventilate. Now, maybe about 5% of your patients, just because you ventilate, you may not oxygenate because they might have something wrong with their alveolar capillary membrane and they might have a diffusion problem. So they could ventilate but not oxygenate. So let's assume that that's not part of this context. So number one of three, not in any order, is your patient ventilating? Do you see end tidal? Check your ventilator. Are you delivering tidal volumes, and are the tidal volumes that are coming back registering on the ventilator as the amount that you set it to deliver? If you're ventilating, you can quickly look up and say, well, I'm oxygenating as well. But most importantly, are you ventilating? Because if you're not, there might be a delay with your reserve of oxygen, your FRC, where you might not see the patient desat. And you don't want to get to the point where they're desatting when you're trying to problem solve. Oh, they're not ventilating. Now what? Now they're desatting. You have no time to react. Number two, again, in no specific order, are they hemodynamically stable? What's their blood pressure? What's their heart rate? If you've already looked at end tidal to determine whether or not they're ventilating and that they're getting their tidal volumes, your end tidal is actually also a surrogate of what your blood pressure is. If you have oxygen being delivered to the cells and to the kidneys and the brain and so on, the byproduct of that is CO2. If you don't have good cardiac output and good delivery of oxygen, your end tidal CO2 will drop. And that's an every minute type of, every second type of surrogate to monitoring blood pressure. But again, is your cuff cycling every 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, no more than 5 minutes? And is that a normal pressure? Third thing, are you giving the appropriate amount of anesthesia for what you're doing right here, right now? We know that 2% of SIVO is about 1 mac of gas. But does a patient need 1 mac of gas with sevoflurane if they're just simply sitting on a table waiting for the surgeon to scrub and you have an LMA in versus an endotracheal tube? Now, there's different stimulations between those two. But again, if the surgeon's not operating and the patient's just sitting there, they don't need 2%. What if they've gotten fentanyl and Versed on top of a large bolus of propofol and now you're on 2% right away? Completely unnecessary. And if you don't follow number three, what you'll end up happening is you'll be messing with number two, which is you'll probably be hemodynamically unstable. And when you're given the appropriate amount of anesthesia, it comes with experience. As you start to add these different things all together and you try and determine based on the specific patient, the surgery, and the simulation at hand, what's appropriate. So one way to cheat is to put a BIS monitor on. What is the BIS telling you? Are you 40 to 60? If you're isoelectric or if you're in burst suppression, you're probably too deep. Lighten up on the anesthesia until it's time for the surgery to start. If you do those three things, you'll have a safe patient and you'll be able to do excellent anesthesia, and your preceptors will be very proud of you.